Today I'll be going over part 7 of Larry Geller's book, Unchained Melody. January 1st, 1977, 5:55 a.m. aboard the Lisa Marie. Larry says when they boarded the Lisa Marie, it was freezing and it took a long time for the heaters to warm it up. Everyone was freezing on the plane, so they huddled together under blankets until it finally warmed up enough to take their seats. The flight was delayed after the control tower warned Captain Elwood that 2 bomb threats had been called in about Elvis's plane. Captain Elwood told Joe they could not take off after the bomb threats unless Elvis's team signed a waiver accepting full responsibility. Larry says that the first few minutes after takeoff felt tense and eerie after the bomb threats, even though they suspected it was a hoax. It left him hoping 1977 would be better than 1976. January 3rd, 1977, Graceland. Larry was blow-drying Elvis's hair when Elvis said, "Lawrence, I just realized why my first attraction to Priscilla happened. It's reincarnation. How else would a grown-up man be so drawn to a 14-year-old girl? Man, I used to think she was my soulmate. Now I know she wasn't the one, at least not my real soulmate. She was only a dress rehearsal, Larry, not the real thing. It must be some sort of karma we obviously had together, only I'm sure it's all from another life." 7:40 p.m. that same day. They flew back to Los Angeles and landed at the VIP airport next to LAX. Larry and Lisa were dropped off and Elvis continued on a flight to Palm Springs. Larry rode in a waiting limo with Lisa and then she got dropped off. Larry would join Elvis in Palm Springs in a few days. January 8th, 1977, Palm Springs, California. Larry says when he arrived at the house, some of the guys privately asked him for help choosing spiritual books for Elvis's birthday. They wanted Larry to provide a list. Larry writes, quote, "How ironic. They bitch and complain because they have to carry Elvis's trunks filled with his portable library wherever he goes. They have no philosophical, psychological, metaphysical, or spiritual bent. They scoff at anything we study. They laugh behind Elvis's back and at me openly. Now they are anxious to bring him material they don't believe in or want anything to do with themselves." End quote. 6:15 p.m. that same day. Larry styled Elvis's hair. Elvis looked especially sharp on his 42nd birthday wearing a black suit with a blue silk shirt, and he was holding a stack of $100 bills. Everyone gave him their gifts, including Larry, who had given him an assortment of vitamins and minerals. Then Elvis said, "Would you guys excuse us? I want to talk with the ladies privately." Elvis spent the next hour and a half sharing spiritual ideas and reading from his favorite spiritual books to the women in the group. He handed each woman a $100 bill and said, "This is my birthday, and what makes me happy is not just receiving gifts, but giving. This is my gift to you." January 9th, 1977, Palm Springs. Larry says everyone was gathered in the living room when Elvis and Ginger finally emerged from the bedroom after 8 p.m. Elvis said, "I'm going to have the manager of Robinson's open the store tonight so that Ginger can go shopping, and I want all the ladies to go with her and pick out whatever they want for themselves. I'll send Dick and a few guys from security so that no one will bother you. Y'all should have a great time. The store is all for you. So pick out whatever you need. And keep an eye on Ginger. Make sure she doesn't go hog wild." Larry says he went home before the next tour and continued working on his book, but Elvis stayed heavily on his mind after everything that had happened the last 8 weeks. Larry writes, quote, "Elvis always had his highs and his lows, but this was something else. His happiness over Ginger was all-consuming, and yet he expressed the doubts many of us had about her. No sooner would he indicate that he realized there was something amiss in their relationship than he'd be off again, rhapsodizing about her and their future together. Generally, just about everyone in the entourage was cool towards Ginger." Larry says in the early morning hours of January 13th, he was woken by his phone ringing. Half asleep, he answered, and the voice on the line said, "Do you have your diploma?" Larry said, "Huh? Who's this?" The voice said, "It's me." Larry realized it was Elvis and asked, "What diploma are you talking about? My cosmetology license?" Elvis said, "No, to marry someone." Larry answered, "Yeah, I do. Why?" Elvis was calling from Palm Springs, sounding happier than he had in a long time, and he asked Larry to come perform a wedding ceremony for his dentist, Dr. Max Shapiro, and his fiancée, Suzanne. Larry says half an hour later, he flew to Palm Springs, even though he had never performed a wedding before, so he had to prepare notes on the way. He prepared the ceremony on the plane, going over which psalms to include, and also to have Max and Suzanne speak from the heart about why they wanted to marry. Before the sun came up, Larry pronounced them man and wife. After Larry congratulated the newlyweds, Elvis quietly said, "Lawrence, would you come into my bedroom and talk to me and Ginger?" Once in the bedroom, Elvis warmly hugged him, and the three of them sat together on Elvis's bed. Elvis said, Larry, that was the best wedding ceremony I ever witnessed. I mean, did you feel the presence, the spirit in that room? He was choked with emotion, and he said to Ginger, "Honey, what did I tell you?" She broke her silence and said, "Yes, Larry, that really was special." Elvis continued, "I knew this was really going to be something, but that service went beyond my expectations. What really got me was that most ceremonies just go through the motions. They always use the right words, but the words are dead, like there's no life, no spirit behind them. That room was filled with light and the Holy Spirit. That's the way weddings should be, not just religious, but spiritual." Larry says Elvis suddenly became shy and emotional, and he looked around the room and at Ginger before speaking more softly. He said, "Larry, I haven't even told this to Ginger, but now is as good a time as ever. A few nights ago, I had a vivid dream. Ginger appeared before me dressed all in white. She looked like the perfect bride." He held Ginger's hand and said, "Honey, I know we sort of touched on the subject of marriage a few times recently, but I want Larry to marry us at Graceland, just like the ceremony tonight. Do you agree?" Larry says Ginger's face brightened at the mention of marriage and didn't say anything at first. Then she smiled and said, "Yes, of course." Elvis caressed her face and gave her a kiss. Elvis had a smile of victory on his face and said, Lawrence, will you marry us?" Larry writes, quote, "In my heart of hearts, I strongly doubted that their marriage would ever take place. I told Elvis that my license is only in California, so I couldn't legally marry them in Tennessee. He said, 'Nah, don't worry about it. We'll have a preacher do the ceremony, and then you can do your thing.' Then Elvis got serious. He said, 'Now, don't tell anyone. This is our secret. I don't know yet when we'll do it. Probably toward the end of summer, August or September. We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure everything will happen the way it's supposed to.'" Larry says he left Palm Springs eager to get home. On January 23rd, he received a late-night call from Elvis, who was at Graceland. Elvis sounded very frustrated. He said, "Larry, tell me one thing. Why am I sitting here at Graceland? What the hell is going on? I need to be out there. Why aren't I working? I feel myself washing away here. I mean, I haven't done a show all month. What the hell is happening, huh?" Larry calmly replied, "Elvis, you should be happy to have a short break." But then Elvis interrupted him. Elvis said, "Hey, easy for you to say. At least you're writing your book between tours while they have me here in some kind of holding pattern." Larry told him, "Take advantage of these few weeks off. You've been working yourself into an early grave. You need a rest. You know that. Plus, there's no shows touring right now anyway. Most of the country is snowed in. They say this is the coldest winter of this century. It even snowed in Florida. So relax. You really need to. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise." Elvis said, "Yeah, but what about the fans? They expect to see me. They don't care about the bad weather. I can't let them down. Hey, they put me here. I owe everything to them." Larry says he tried to explain again why Elvis should not be touring, but Elvis would not listen. Larry said, "We all need you, Elvis, but we need you healthy and well. So here's the ideal situation. Record-breaking bad weather. Your fans will understand if you're home for a couple more weeks. You have to get well." Larry says Elvis cut him off to avoid talking about his health, and it revealed that something else was really upsetting him. Elvis said, "And the fans are going to read those lies in that goddamn filthy book that's coming out. Those guys are trying to kill me. I can't fathom it. My so-called friends are trying to distort my image to the public and my fans." Larry said, "Elvis, let it go for now. You've got to calm yourself and think of more important, more positive things. You're loved, man. Your fans would go to the ends of the earth for you." Elvis shouted, I know. Then he said, "Hey, the fans are not dumb. They won't believe this. They'll see through it. My fans are very special. They know the truth." Larry said, "Right on, Elvis. All you have to do is live your life and do the best you can. The fans will never leave you. You couldn't get rid of them if you tried." Elvis said, "Hey, I told Daddy about the wedding you did in Palm Springs and what our plans are. He's a little overly cautious, you know. He said, 'Go slow, son.'" Then Elvis turned back into the confident Elvis, and he said, "Well, just get your butt down here as soon as possible. You hear?" Larry writes, quote, "As his friend, I tried to walk the line between sharing his happiness about Ginger and letting him know that it was okay to express his doubts. I certainly had my own. In early February, he asked me to come to Graceland earlier than planned. It was typical of Elvis to call and ask people to rearrange their plans on a moment's notice. But suddenly he seemed particularly in need of companionship, and he wasn't taking no for an answer." February 2nd, 1977. Larry says he was home writing at his desk when Elvis called him on the evening of February 2nd. He sounded very enthusiastic. "Lawrence, I need to talk to you. I need you here. Phones serve their purpose, but there's nothing like personal contact. You know, eyeball to eyeball. Look, I want to buy you a new condominium here in Whitehaven. That way I'll save all these long-distance phone bills, and you should be here anyway. I mean, I'll buy you one free and clear, the most expensive condo in Memphis." Then Larry interrupted him. Larry said, Elvis, that's a beautiful offer. I really appreciate it, and I'd love that. Only I can't accept, not right now anyway. I have to be here in LA between tours to complete the book and be with my family, at least for the next 6 months. You know what this book means to me. Can I take a rain check? Elvis realized Larry wasn't going to change his mind, so he finally gave in gracefully. Elvis said, well, I understand. I want you to finish your book. I believe in it. I know it will help people, and I'm proud of you. So you got your rain check. But Larry, listen carefully, son. I'm not exactly sure, but in the past few months, I've been having prophetic type dreams. And last night I had one that was something else. I mean, it was a dream, only it was more than just a mere dream. It was real. It was like a direct message. Elvis sighed and continued in a serious tone. He said, I dreamt that Ginger and I were outside in the back of Graceland by the fence. Ginger was dressed all in white. Then he paused and had a realization. Whoa, Ginger was wearing white in that other dream I told you about. White, huh? He mumbled to himself. White is definitely symbolic. Larry, what do you think white represents? Larry said, well, basically white represents purity and the divine, and then Elvis interrupted him. Hey, wait a minute. Let me find that book you gave me, Color and Music in the New Age. It's here somewhere. Hold on. When Elvis got back on the phone, Larry could hear him going through the pages. Then Elvis read, as all creation is inherent in God himself, so does the great white light contain within itself all the colors of the spectrum, and it plays directly upon the divinity within. As his latent divinity is awakened, he comes into attunement with the white light as a power. Elvis mumbled to himself again as he read through the other passages, and then he read aloud, the glorious one who manifests through the white ray is beyond all planets, all stars, all constellations. Him we identify only as the supreme being. Elvis picked up another book the author wrote and read, white light is weighted with the power to bless. It is God speaking through the manifold activities of creation. Larry says Elvis became energized trying to understand his dream because he seemed happiest when he was searching for deeper meaning. Elvis said, all right, listen to the rest of my dream. The best is yet to come. Okay, Ginger's dressed all in white, like the other dream, and she also has on a white shawl over her shoulders. We're holding hands and gazing into each other's eyes when, you won't believe this, Ginger turns into my mother, even her voice. I mean, it was my mother. The eyes never changed. Ginger became my mother. They were wearing white, the same clothes, but those eyes. Ginger's eyes and my mother's eyes were exactly the same, piercing right through me, looking into my very core. I can still see them right now. It was that vivid. Then suddenly Son, which was one of Elvis's horses, walks over to us when Ginger becomes my mother. Not a word is spoken. We are communicating with our eyes locked. Then my mother mounts Son bareback. Elvis paused briefly, amused by this last detail. That's right, she was bareback. I'm sure that means something too. Then my mother, with our eyes fixed, says, Son, our love is eternal. I'll never do anything to hurt you. You know that, never. No matter what, our love for each other is unconditional. Then, as she starts to ride off, she stops, turns back, and she says again, I'll never hurt you. Elvis started to get emotional. He said, Good God, Larry, as she begins to turn and ride off, she becomes Ginger again, and she and Son start to gallop and fly into the sky and clouds, and all I hear is, I'll never leave you. I'll never leave you. And they fade out, just like a movie in living color. That was not just a mere dream. Seriously, Larry, I really think there's something profound here. February 10, 1977, Graceland. Larry says he arrived at Graceland and called Elvis's bedroom from the kitchen. Larry was asked to come upstairs right away, and he found Elvis and Vernon sitting together on the bed. Vernon was smoking a cigarette and looked defeated. Elvis sat there upset and looked disgusted. He was still in his bathrobe with his hair messy and uncombed. Elvis's spiritual books were scattered on the bed, and on the nightstand beside vials and bottles of laxatives, eye drops, nose spray, atomizers, and various medications. Both TVs were on but muted. Elvis said, Remember our last tour in Vegas? Well, I heard the Colonel lost $1.4 million. Larry says Elvis grew angrier with every word while Vernon sat silently in a cloud of cigarette smoke. Elvis said, Larry, $1.4 million in one night. Man, that's outrageous. Most people don't make that kind of money working hard for their entire lives. And he lost it in one damn night gambling in Sin City. Then he looked at Vernon and said, Daddy, you were probably right. We should have gotten rid of him back in '74. Vernon looked up and slightly shrugged his shoulders as if to say it was beyond his control. Vernon said, Well, son, you always knew how I felt about him, and you remember how your mama felt about him. She thought we were all being taken in, but you're the boss. Elvis didn't say anything for a long time, then muttered, Yeah, mama was always right. Then, louder, he said, Look, don't get me wrong. I'm grateful to the Colonel for all he's done. I've always been loyal to him and everyone else. That's my nature, only like the song says. The times they are a-changin', and I think his time is about up. Gentlemen, let me put it this way. I think we need some new blood. He paused and then said, Man, $1.4 million blown in one night. I like Mr. Baron Hilton. He's a good man, but damn, I don't ever want to go back to Vegas again and perform. And I won't. 1.4 million, that's downright immoral. Something's got to change. I don't know what it is yet, but things are definitely going to be different around here. Vernon wearily got up to leave and said, Elvis, I think I'd better get home now. It's getting past my bedtime, son. The weight of this problem was just too much for Vernon. Elvis got up too and hugged his dad and said, well, Daddy, don't you worry yourself. As long as I'm around, everything will be all right. Vernon, not looking well, said, well, son, I know it will too. Don't worry about me. Good night, Elvis. Good night, Larry. Vernon stopped at the door and said, try not to stay up all night worrying yourself to death over the old colonel. He ain't worth it. You gotta get ready and go on tour, you know. Elvis told him, Daddy, this too shall pass. You know me. I just had to get it off my chest. Larry's here. He'll fix my hair and you know us. We'll ponder the universe and figure it all out. It'll be all right. I love you, Daddy. Vernon said he loved him too and then walked out. Elvis then said, Daddy has always resented the colonel. He thinks he's taken advantage of his position. He'd love me to get rid of the colonel's old ass. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Larry says that during the next tour, which covered the South and Southwest, a fan told him Elvis's recording of How Great Thou Art had helped save her life. The fan's name was Darlene, and her story showed how deeply Elvis's music had touched people. Larry told her he was going to tell Elvis her story, and he wondered to himself how many similar stories Elvis never heard. February 12, 1977, Hilton Hotel, West Palm Beach, Florida. So this is one of the repetitive moments. This is when Larry tells Elvis about Darlene's story, so I'm not going to go over that again. Larry says Elvis's Valentine's Day show was overshadowed by more death threats when a fan warned Larry that someone planned to kill Elvis. Larry warned Dick Grobe, who already had security and a bomb squad in place, and they were told to stop any gifts from reaching Elvis. No one told Elvis a thing about it. Larry, Dean, and Ed Parker intercepted gifts from fans and handed them to a special police squad. He says Elvis noticed but didn't realize what was really happening. Larry says the whole night felt strange, with a woman falling from a second-floor balcony and breaking her leg, and then a small mob nearly reaching Elvis as he ran to his limousine. Back at the suite, Elvis was perspiring profusely and breathing heavily. He said, "Good Lord, what the hell was going on tonight? I knew something was up." When Joe told him about the death threats, Elvis responded, "Wow." Obviously, everyone was safe, and Larry says Elvis laughed from relief, and everyone joined in. They were all exhausted and scared and overwhelmed. February 20th, 1977, Hilton Hotel, Charlotte, North Carolina. Larry was heading toward the coffee shop when Darlene approached him holding a large manila envelope. She said, "Larry, I've got to talk to you. It's serious." He said, "Sure, what's up?" She looked around, making sure no one was within earshot. She said, "Larry, you know the book that is supposed to come out by the bodyguards Elvis fired? Well, it's going to. One of the fans got her little hands on this at Ballantine Books in New York and made a copy for me, and I made one for you." She handed Larry the envelope. Then she said, "They're trying to crucify him. Wait until you read what I just gave you. My friend said the book will be out in paperback only in late July or August. Larry, I'm giving this to you because I know you'll handle it in the way you figure best." He thanked her and gave her a hug and told her not to tell anyone about it. She said, "Are you kidding me? This is top secret, and I'm glad to help Elvis." This is what Larry wrote in his journal that day. Quote, "I immediately went to my room and read the material. The Xeroxed pages look like galley proofs. They speak of Elvis being wiped out on drugs and wanting Mike Stone killed for stealing Priscilla away from him. Judging from the pages I read, the former bodyguards are twisting the facts so that it seems that Elvis would in fact do such an outrageous, ludicrous act as committing murder or contracting it out. A writer for the Star and former bodyguards. My head reels to think how they can blow everything out of proportion." End quote. Charlotte Coliseum, Charlotte, North Carolina, that same day. Larry says that as Elvis went on stage, he packed up his hairstyling tools and noticed two women crying out in the back while police held them back. The two women were among tickless fans at the exit, and they were dressed unusually in lace capelets and long ankle-length dresses. The two women were waving at Larry and begging him to talk to them. They were frantic, and both started talking at once when he approached them. Larry said, "Slow down. What can I do for you?" The larger of the two looked at Larry's ID badge and asked, "You work for Elvis, don't you?" Larry said, "Yes." Wide-eyed, she said, "Please give him this if you want him to live." And she handed Larry a note. Then she said, "We've been praying for him. We were told he is going to die." Larry asked, "Who told you that?" The other woman said, "The Lord told us." And then her friend exclaimed, praise God," as her eyes rolled upward. The second woman said, "We were directed here tonight to deliver this message. Just give it to him, and he'll see us. We have to speak to him and tell him everything. We were told to see him and explain God's plan. If we don't see him, he will die." Larry politely thanked the woman and walked away. He turned to look at them before he entered the building and saw them praying intensely with raised hands and speaking in tongues. The note read, quote, "Dear Elvis, we have been personally directed by our Lord to speak with you. Your life is in grave danger. We have a special message for you that can save you. Your own mother is very upset and concerned, and we have a message from her too. Please take heed. We are not some nuts. This is for your good. Praise the Lord." End quote. Larry says he kept the note for a day or two, then threw it away without telling anyone, seeing it as just another strange moment on an unusually unsettling tour. The day after the tour ended, they were back at Graceland watching The Return of the Pink Panther. Elvis was happily quoting and imitating Inspector Clouseau and laughing. Ginger called during the movie, and when Elvis came back from the call, he was clearly angry and disappointed and, quote, disgusted. Elvis said, "Oh, ye of little faith." Turns out, Ginger called to tell him she would not be staying at Graceland, but with her mother instead. Elvis said, "Damn, that girl's tearing my head up. One minute she's here, the next minute she runs to her mother. I've told her to let go of her attachment. I've read to her all the teachings on growth and how negative attachments to the past will only hold you down." March 4th, 1977, Rainbow Towers Hawaiian Village Hotel, Honolulu. Larry says they finally took a much-needed vacation because everyone was exhausted from touring and the intense pressure of working around Elvis during difficult conditions. Larry writes, quote, "The one-nighters, the debilitating winter cold, taking care of Elvis, an exhausting job unto itself, all have taken their toll. We all look and feel older than we are. Elvis is a driven man and he needs this rest more than anyone else. He desperately requires more than a short vacation in Hawaii. Hopefully, this will signal some kind of change because his condition is getting worse, and this short surcease from agony is just the tonic for the time being. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step." End quote. Larry says everyone looked relieved to be in Hawaii. They were enjoying the tropical setting and the beautiful view from the Rainbow Tower's 31st floor. Elvis seemed happy and relaxed. He spent most of the daylight on his balcony showing everyone the view of Waikiki Beach and Diamond Head. And he was happy to have Ginger's sisters, Terry and Rosemary, there and took pride in giving them the Hawaii trip. There were 38 people on that trip, and Larry says it was the family Elvis had adopted. Larry says everyone hoped Hawaii would help Elvis get outside and exercise and eat healthier instead of falling back into fried foods and late-night overeating right before he went to sleep. Hawaii felt healing and refreshing with the clean air and tropical scents and a peaceful atmosphere that lifted everyone's spirits. March 5th, 1977. Larry says he felt wonderful and relaxed in Hawaii, and when he entered Elvis's suite, Elvis was just coming out for breakfast. Elvis smiled and said, "Aloha, LG," and Larry said, "Aloha, E." Larry had given Elvis vitamins for his birthday, but Elvis only took them for a couple of days. In Hawaii, Larry hoped he could encourage Elvis toward healthier habits. He had prepared a packet of vitamins and minerals for Elvis and placed them in front of him on the coffee table. Larry told him, "Take this power pack, Elvis. It will pick you up and give you some natural energy. I put in some extra E and a potent combination of the B complex, vitamin C, and some minerals. If you take these every day, they will help strengthen you." Elvis washed the pack down with fresh orange juice. Then he grinned and said, "I want to get these down before Dr. Nick comes in. Remember last year when we were on tour and you came in with a load of vitamin pills like these for me?" And Dr. Nick said, "That crap doesn't work. He doesn't need those." Well, you know he's a doctor and most of them are locked into the old traditional medicine ways of doing things. That's how they've been trained. I don't want to hear him bitch and complain again. Doctors think they know everything. Elvis spent the rest of the day quietly relaxing in his suite and enjoying the balcony view and the fresh tropical air. Most of the group spent the day relaxing on the beach and shopping and eating at restaurants around the Hilton Hawaiian Village. March 6, 1977, Oahu. Larry says Elvis rented a private beach house in Kailua so he could relax by the pool or beach away from the crowds. Elvis played football for the first time in over a year and pushed himself so hard that Joe warned him to slow down because of his heart. Larry says, but there's no stopping Elvis once he has his mind set on something. March 7, 1977, Oahu. Larry says Elvis was sore from playing football the day before, and most of the group was feeling it too. The group spent the afternoon relaxing by the ocean, and Elvis seemed happier and more alive than he had in a long time. Hawaii reminded him of happier times, and Larry hoped the trip would help shake Elvis out of his stupor. Larry writes, quote, "Strangely, he won't expose his body. No matter how hot it is, he wears his athletic pants, a short-sleeved sweatshirt, a terry cloth hat with the brim turned down, and his sunglasses. Is there some other reason than the beach being open to the public?" March 9, 1977, Kailua Bay. Larry says author Bernard Benson invited him, Charlie, and Celeste to his nearby beach house for a special meeting with a respected Tibetan Buddhist master in Hawaii named Rimpoche. They had first met Bernard the previous December, and Bernard instantly became a fan of Elvis. Rimpoche didn't speak English, but his presence was powerful. He appeared small and radiant and was dressed in a traditional saffron robe. Larry says Rimpoche was deeply peaceful and had bright, knowing eyes and a face that seemed to shine with inner light. They sat quietly together for about an hour in Bernard's living room, looking out at Kailua Bay in a peaceful silence. Larry says the quiet meeting with Rimpoche felt deeply healing, and it was helping him release built-up tension and frustration. Rimpoche spoke quietly to his young Tibetan attendant, and Larry only understood his words through this interpreter. The young attendant said, "Master said, one can never know the truth that is beyond the mind. The mind can only create an idea of truth, an image of truth. Truth is the creativeness behind all creation, yet that which is created is not truth. Only the uncreated is creative, and that is the truth. Therefore, discover in the silence of the mind the true unity in all things. Disregard personal separation. Live in the conscious realization of your oneness with the creator of all mankind." Then the young attendant turned to Larry and said, "You should do a meditation. Om Mani Padme Om." Translated, it means the jewel in the center of the lotus, a symbol of the divinity within the flesh. Elvis's beach house, Kailua Bay. Larry and Charlie told Elvis about their meeting with Rimpoche and asked if Elvis wanted to meet him, but Elvis seemed hesitant. Elvis said, "Not now, Charlie. I have a little trouble with that one. I don't need to meet any masters right now. I'm on the right path." Elvis held up a spiritual book he was holding and clutched the high he was wearing around his neck. "I'm sure you had a good experience and they're good people, but not now. Maybe some other time." So that's interesting. I would have thought he would have been open to meeting someone like Rimpoche. March 11th, 1977. Larry says Ed Parker arranged for Elvis and the group to visit the Polynesian Cultural Center in Hawaii, and around 8 p.m., they all drove in a caravan there. Ed carefully arranged security so Elvis could enter the Polynesian Center unnoticed, at least until he got to a seat. Elvis was quickly recognized, and soon the crowd's attention shifted from the show to Elvis enjoying himself in the stands. March 13th, 1977. Larry says Elvis decided to leave Hawaii and return to Graceland before the next tour began on the 23rd. He gave each person a gift and said, "I gave everyone gifts so that they would have something to remember our trip to Hawaii and us all happily being together." Larry says everyone returned home after Hawaii to prepare for the next tour. The vacation helped Elvis relax, but it wasn't enough to truly restore him. March 23rd, 1977, Arizona State University Center, Tempe, Arizona. Larry says they hoped Hawaii would improve Elvis's health, but once the tour resumed, it was clear nothing had really changed. Larry writes, quote, "His face is already pale and puffy again. Backstage, moments before showtime, with his general demeanor unusually sluggish, and after Dr. Nick left the dressing room, Elvis said, 'Larry, I need some help. Just put your hands on my throat and body and send me some light and energy.'" End quote. Larry says surprisingly Elvis's voice sounded amazingly strong and beautiful. His body was weakening, but it seemed like his strength was coming from his soul. After the show, they flew straight to Amarillo. Larry arrived at Elvis's room around 3 a.m. Dr. Nick had just handed Elvis his nightly packet of pills and then left when he saw Larry. Elvis was lying down with a wet towel over his eyes, trying to speak, but he sounded weak and hard to understand. Larry asked what was wrong, and Elvis told him, "Oh, my damn eyes are killing me. They're burning like hell again. I can't endure physical pain," but Elvis stopped and struggled to sit up. Then he gathered himself and began opening up about what was truly upsetting him. Elvis said, "What I can't handle is the thought of my baby Lisa and my daddy reading that blamed lion book. I'm not concerned anymore about the fans. They're wise enough to see through any lies." His voice began to sound panicked. "But what about Lisa? What is she going to think of her daddy when she grows up?" Larry said, "Elvis, listen to what you're saying. What's Lisa going to think when she grows up? What do you mean? You're going to tell her the truth yourself." Elvis looked deeply hopeless and didn't respond to Larry's question. Elvis said, "And Daddy, my daddy reading bullshit lies about me. It will kill him. If anybody hurts my daddy or Lisa, God help them, for I'll personally do God's work for him and send them to where they belong. And Larry, don't get me wrong. I don't hate those guys. I hate what they're doing." Elvis suggested meditation, and so they did for 15 minutes. Then Elvis said a prayer in which he blessed Red, Sonny, and Dave, and then his mood seemed to lift. Elvis said, "You know what, Larry? I'll bet that book is not coming out anyway. Look, we haven't heard anything in the press. And what publisher would want to take the chance? I mean, when we first heard about it, we knew it was a bunch of distortion and fabrications, an attempt to smear me. No publisher will lie and face a lawsuit like that. I really don't think they could even find a publisher who would take their story." Larry says Elvis kept rationalizing his position because admitting he might be wrong was too frightening for him. Larry listened silently. He was unable to tell Elvis what he knew from the galley pages he had read, and he was hoping Elvis's scenario might somehow be true. Larry writes, quote, Joe had to have told Colonel Parker, and Colonel Parker had to be working on this, didn't he? Joe was right, knowing for certain that the book was being published would kill Elvis, but as time passed and there was no evidence that it would disappear, it became increasingly difficult to keep the truth to myself. Elvis finally went to sleep, so I returned to my room, end quote. So I remember reading about Vernon getting John O'Grady to call Sonny West and offering a sum of money to stop the book. But I don't recall Tom Parker ever having an active role as Elvis's manager in trying to keep the book from coming out. Strange. That's it for part 7. Stay tuned for part 8, which will pick up on March 29th, 1977. See you then.